I stood frozen in my parents' home office, staring at the receipt in my shaking hands. $2,000 for a gaming system for my nephew Tyler. $2,000 from my account. My stomach twisted as I remembered the $15 coloring book they'd given my daughter Lily for her birthday last month. They'd claimed money was tight. I'd believed them. The paper crinkled in my grip as footsteps approached. My mother appeared in the doorway, smiling like nothing was wrong. That smile I'd trusted my whole life. That smile that had been lying to me all along. I never expected to find myself in this situation. At 34, I thought I had a good handle on my life despite its challenges. I work as a hospital administrator in Portland, Oregon, a job that demands long hours but provides stability for me and my daughter Lily, who just turned 9 last month. Lily is the center of my world. She's bright, creative, and incredibly sensitive. Her teacher says she has one of the most inquisitive minds in class. But she struggles with anxiety, which began when her father walked out on us when she was just 4 years old. He decided family life wasn't for him and moved across the country. His sporadic calls dwindled to nothing within a year. Now he sends a card on her birthday if we're lucky. My sister Amanda lives just 20 minutes away with her twins Tyler and Ashley. They're both 12 and, according to my parents, absolute perfection. Amanda married her college sweetheart Greg, who works as a successful attorney. Their life looks picture perfect on the outside. 3 years ago, my parents Frank and Diane retired and decided to move closer to us. Dad had worked in banking for 40 years and Mom had been an elementary school teacher. They sold their home in Tucson and bought a beautiful ranch-style house just 15 minutes from me. I was genuinely thrilled when they announced their decision. "We want to be real grandparents," Mom had said, "present in our grandchildren's lives. And you could use the support gene." She wasn't wrong. Balancing single motherhood with a demanding career had been exhausting. The prospect of having my parents nearby seemed like the answer to prayers I hadn't even voiced. "We can help with Lily after school," Dad offered. "You won't have to worry about childcare during your late shifts." Their offer was so generous that I immediately suggested setting up a joint account. For emergencies and to cover expenses when you're watching Lily, I explained as I deposited $10,000 into it. "I don't want you to have to spend your retirement money when you're helping me out." The first 6 months were like a dream. My parents seemed to adore Lily, picking her up from school 3 days a week when my schedule required it. They'd help her with homework, prepare dinner, and have her bathed and ready for bed by the time I got home. Lily started calling those grandma and grandpa days, marking them with happy faces on her calendar. I showed my gratitude by treating them to dinner at their favorite steakhouse once a month and buying small gifts when I could, a specialty coffee. Mom loved, or tickets to the classic car show for Dad. The arrangement felt perfect. One evening I came home to find Lily curled up between my parents on the couch, all three laughing at a movie. Lily's head rested comfortably on my father's shoulder while my mother absent-mindedly stroked her hair. The sight brought tears to my eyes. Maybe we were healing from the wound her father had left. Maybe this extended family could give Lily the stability and love she deserved. Then the cancellations began. First, it was Lily's school play. Mom called that morning, "Frank and I can't make it tonight. Ashley has a soccer game, and we promised we'd be there." I understood. Commitments happen. But then they canceled our weekend trip to the Science Museum. Tyler qualified for a regional chess tournament. We need to support him. The third cancellation came when they'd promised to take Lily fishing, something she'd been looking forward to for weeks. Amanda needs us to watch the twins while she and Greg attend a work function. 3 cancellations in 2 weeks, all to attend my sister's children's activities instead. As I looked at Lily's disappointed face for the 3rd time, a tiny alarm bell started ringing in the back of my mind. I pushed my concerns aside, making excuses for my parents' behavior. They were trying to divide their time between all their grandchildren. It couldn't be easy. Perhaps they felt they saw Lily more often during the week, so weekends could be for the twins. That explanation made sense, and I clung to it. But the pattern continued and intensified. My parents began organizing elaborate weekend activities for Amanda's family, hiking trips, visits to the coast, even a 3-day camping adventure. Lily and I were never invited. When I casually mentioned this to Mom, she seemed surprised. "Oh, we assumed you'd be working. And Lily is so much younger than the twins, we didn't think she'd enjoy those activities." I swallowed my disappointment. We'd love to be included next time, even if it's something small. Mom nodded absently. "Of course, dear." The next family gathering was a Sunday barbecue at my parents' house. Amanda's family arrived at the same time we did, and I watched as my parents fussed over Tyler and Ashley, exclaiming over Ashley's new haircut and asking Tyler detailed questions about his latest chess tournament. Lily stood beside me, clutching her drawing she'd made specifically for her grandparents. After 10 minutes of being completely ignored, she tugged at my sleeve. "Should I show Grandma my picture now?" she whispered. "Of course, sweetheart." Lily approached my mother, holding out her artwork, a detailed drawing of all of us together at the park. "I made this for you, Grandma." My mother glanced at it briefly. "That's nice, Lily. Put it on the counter. Ashley, come show everyone your science fair medal." The flash of hurt in Lily's eyes was unmistakable as she placed her drawing on the counter and retreated to my side. Throughout the afternoon, the pattern continued. My father played catch with Tyler for nearly an hour, while Ashley helped my mother prepare dessert. Lily sat alone on the patio swing, watching everyone else interact. When Lily asked if she could help with dessert too, my mother replied, "There's not enough room in the kitchen for 3 people. Maybe next time." I noticed other disturbing patterns as the day wore on. Mom had prepared Tyler's favorite burgers and Ashley's preferred pasta salad. When Lily quietly mentioned she didn't like spicy barbecue sauce, my mother sighed. "You're just so picky, Lily. The twins eat everything put in front of them." The comparisons didn't stop there. "Ashley's already reading at a high school level," Mom announced at dinner, "and Tyler's math abilities are extraordinary." No mention of Lily's recent art award or her perfect spelling test scores. A month later, I was reviewing the joint account statements when I noticed a $500 withdrawal. When I asked my mother about it, she explained, "We enrolled the twins in ski lessons. They're so athletic and winter is coming." From our joint account, I asked, confused. That was meant for Lily's expenses and emergencies. Mom waved her hand dismissively. "It's all family money. Besides, the twins needed proper equipment too." I took a deep breath. "Mom, Lily wanted to attend that art camp last month, but you said the $150 fee was too much." "That's different," Mom replied. "Ski lessons will develop real skills. Drawing is just a hobby." I tried to explain how important art was to Lily, how it helped her process her feelings, but Mom cut me off. "Jean, you're being too sensitive. We're trying to be fair to all our grandchildren." But they weren't being fair, and deep down I knew it. The twins' birthday arrived in April. My parents transformed their backyard into a carnival, complete with rented games and a professional face painter. They gifted Tyler a new laptop for his studies and Ashley a tablet to help with her reading passion. The celebration lasted all day, with nearly 20 of the twins' friends in attendance. 2 weeks later, for Lily's birthday, my parents arrived an hour late with a small, hastily wrapped package. Inside was a coloring book, not even the art supplies Lily had been hoping for. They stayed for 30 minutes before announcing they needed to leave to help Amanda with something at her house. After they left, Lily curled up in my lap and sobbed. "Why don't Grandma and Grandpa love me like they love Tyler and Ashley? Is it because I don't have a dad?" Her words broke my heart. I held her tight, assuring her that she was loved and wonderful exactly as she was. But internally, my doubts were growing into certainty. Something was very wrong with how my parents treated their grandchildren. The next day, I checked our joint account and discovered a $2,000 withdrawal from the previous week. There was no note, no explanation, just $2,000 gone. I called my mother immediately about the missing money. "Oh, that," she said vaguely. "Your father handled that transaction. Something about house repairs, I think." Her evasiveness raised red flags. When I pressed her, she became defensive. "Jean, we don't question how you spend your money. The account is for family needs." I tried calling my father next. He was equally vague, claiming the withdrawal was for family expenses, but offering no specifics. "We're helping everyone out, Jean. That's what family does." Something wasn't adding up. I decided to pay more attention during my next visit to my sister's house. I didn't have to look hard to see where the money had gone. Tyler was sporting brand new high-end wireless headphones. Ashley had a new laptop that she mentioned was a surprise gift from Grandma and Grandpa. Both had new wardrobes with designer labels I recognized and couldn't afford for Lily. The mystery deepened when I helped my mother with her computer the following weekend. She couldn't figure out how to transfer photos from her phone. As I showed her the process images from a recent trip appeared on the screen. "These are great," I commented, trying to hide my surprise. "When did you go to Disneyland?" Mom immediately looked uncomfortable. "Oh, just a quick trip last month. Nothing special." But it was special. As I scrolled through the photos, I saw my parents with Tyler and Ashley posing in front of the castle, enjoying character breakfasts and riding attractions. The date stamps on the photos coincided perfectly with the $2,000 withdrawal. "You took the twins to Disneyland?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "With money from our joint account." Mom quickly took her phone back. "It wasn't just for them. It was for Amanda, too. She's been stressed with Greg working such long hours." "And Lily, why wasn't she invited?" "We didn't think she'd enjoy it," Mom replied. "She gets anxious in crowds, you know. And you were working that weekend." "You didn't even give us the option," I said quietly. "You didn't even tell me about the trip." Mom's expression hardened. "Jean, you're making this into something it isn't. We're allowed to take trips with our grandchildren." "With my money?" I asked. She didn't have an answer for that. That evening, I went through months of bank statements. The pattern was clear and devastating. Beyond the $2,000 for Disneyland and $500 for ski lessons, there were numerous other withdrawals. $700 for school supplies, that Lily never received, $800 for clothing, that never made it to her closet, $1,200 for a special camp that Lily was never invited to attend. In 6 months, they had withdrawn over $5,000, half of what I'd deposited, and Lily had received almost none of the benefit. The next day, I confronted both my parents together. I brought the bank statements and asked them to explain each withdrawal. Dad became defensive immediately. "We're using that money for all our grandchildren, Jean. But Lily has received almost nothing from these expenses," I countered. "How is that fair?" Mom's response chilled me. "The twins need more, Jean. They come from a complete family with expectations." "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew. Dad sighed heavily. "It means the twins have certain advantages that should be maintained. Their parents are successful professionals. They attend private school. They have certain needs. And Lily doesn't," my voice cracked. "Because I'm a single mother." "That's not what we're saying," Mom protested, but her eyes said otherwise. "Lily is already at a disadvantage," Dad added, his voice unnervingly calm. "No father figure a mother who works long hours. The twins have a stable home with 2 parents. They're well-adjusted." "Are you saying Lily isn't well-adjusted?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad looked away. "She's a sweet girl, but you have to admit she's more emotionally draining than the twins. Always anxious, always needing reassurance. The twins are independent, confident." Tears filled my eyes. "She's 9 years old, and her father abandoned her. She deserves just as much love and support as Tyler and Ashley." "Of course she does," Mom said automatically, but there was no conviction in her voice. I left their house in tears, my mind spinning with the implications of what I'd discovered. My own parents viewed my daughter as less deserving because of circumstances beyond her control. They were using my money to create a charmed life for my sister's children, while treating Lily as an afterthought. Before I could even process what had happened, my phone rang. It was Amanda, and she was furious. "What the hell, Jean?" she demanded. "Why are you attacking Mom and Dad about money? They just called me in tears." "Do you know they've been taking money from an account I set up for Lily's expenses and spending it on the twins?" I asked. Her response stunned me. "Yes, I know about the account. They told me they set it up to help all the grandkids. And frankly, Tyler and Ashley have more expenses. Their activities cost more. Amanda, I put that money there. It was my money for my daughter." "Don't be selfish, Jean," she snapped. "Mom and Dad are just trying to be fair. It's not the twins' fault that they have more opportunities." The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just my parents. My sister was complicit, too. They all believed this arrangement was acceptable, that taking from Lily to give to the twins was somehow justified. I hung up without another word, sat down on my kitchen floor, and cried. The discovery of my family's betrayal opened a floodgate of memories and realizations. Patterns I'd dismissed throughout my life suddenly came into sharp focus. This wasn't new behavior. This was who my parents had always been. I remembered how Amanda always received new clothes while I got hand-me-downs, despite being only 2 years apart. How my parents attended every one of her soccer games but frequently missed my debate competitions. How they'd paid for her college entirely but told me I needed to learn financial responsibility through student loans. I'd always attributed these differences to circumstance or coincidence. Now I recognized them for what they were, a lifelong pattern of favoritism. Seeking perspective, I reached out to my Aunt Susan, my father's sister who lived in Seattle. We hadn't been close in recent years, but she had always been kind to me as a child. "I'm not surprised," she said after I explained the situation. "Frank always favored Amanda from the day she was born. She looks just like your grandmother, you know. And she's always been more willing to go along with what your parents want." "And now they're doing the same thing with the grandchildren," I said. "History repeats itself," Susan replied sadly. "Your father did the same thing with his children that his father did with him. Your grandfather favored your father over me and made no secret of it." This conversation with Aunt Susan led me to look more closely at how my parents treated their grandchildren. The disparities went beyond just money and time. During a visit to their house, I discovered a small shelf in their office dedicated to the twins' achievements. Trophies, certificates, and framed photos of Tyler and Ashley covered every inch. There was nothing of Lily's, not even a school photo. In my parents' bedroom, I noticed a beautifully bound document on their nightstand. Curiosity got the better of me and I peeked inside. It was financial paperwork for college savings accounts they had established for Tyler and Ashley. According to the statements, they'd already contributed $15,000 to each account. When I asked them if they had set up anything similar for Lily, my father looked annoyed. "We hadn't gotten around to it yet," he said dismissively. "The twins are older," Mom added. "Their college years will come sooner." But 3 years wasn't that significant a difference when planning for college. The truth was becoming increasingly clear. My parents simply valued their other grandchildren more than they valued Lily. The following week, my parents hosted a dinner with some old family friends. I brought Lily, hoping that the presence of others might encourage my parents to treat her more fairly. Instead, I overheard my mother in the kitchen speaking to her friend Barbara. "It's difficult with Jean's daughter," she was saying in a low voice. "She's from a broken home, you know. Makes her difficult. Not like Amanda's children, they're so well adjusted." I stood frozen in the doorway, Lily thankfully still in the living room with the other guests. My mother spotted me and had the grace to look embarrassed, but she didn't apologize. Later that evening, Lily proudly showed everyone her recent math test on which she'd received the highest score in her class. "That's nice, dear," my father said without looking at the paper. Then immediately, "Did we tell you about Tyler's chess championship? He beat students 3 grades ahead of him." Lily's face fell as the entire conversation shifted to Tyler's achievements, her own accomplishment completely forgotten. The constant dismissal and comparison were taking a toll on Lily. Her anxiety, which had been improving, returned with new intensity. She began having stomachaches before family gatherings. Her school counselor called me in for a meeting. Lily mentioned feeling like her grandparents don't love her as much as her cousins, the counselor told me gently. She believes it's because she doesn't have a dad. These family dynamics could be contributing to her anxiety issues. I nodded, fighting back tears. "I'm aware of the situation. I'm trying to address it." The counselor gave me resources for family therapy and supporting a child through family conflicts. As I drove home, I wondered how things had gotten so bad that my daughter's school had noticed the damage my parents were causing. While looking for a specific document in my mother's desk during another visit with her permission, she needed her insurance information. I found a small, leather-bound journal. The page it was open to caught my eye. It contained a list with my name at the top, followed by dollar amounts and dates. It was a record of everything my mother considered debts I owed them. Picked up Lily from school, $20 gas money was one entry. Made dinner for Jean and Lily, $35 groceries was another. There were dozens of these entries, totaling thousands of dollars for basic grandparent duties they had volunteered to perform. There was no similar accounting for Amanda or expenses related to the twins. The final revelation came during a conversation with my cousin Heather, who lived out of state but had recently visited my parents. "I was surprised by some of the things your mom said about you," she mentioned casually during our phone call. "What do you mean?" I asked. "She kept saying how worried they are about your parenting, that you work too much and don't give Lily enough structure. She told everyone at the dinner party that they basically raised Lily because you're never around." I was speechless. Not only were my parents showing blatant favoritism, but they were also actively undermining me to the extended family, painting themselves as saviors while characterizing me as a neglectful mother. As I processed this information, I remembered numerous instances of my parents separately talking to Amanda and me, passing along comments allegedly from the other sister. Amanda thinks you're too lenient with Lily, my mother had told me once. To Amanda, they'd apparently said Jean thinks the twins are spoiled. I called Amanda directly. Did I ever tell you I thought the twins were spoiled? What? No. But Mom said. She stopped abruptly. Mom told you I said that I pressed. A long pause followed. Yes, she said you complained about how much they get compared to Lily. I never said that, Amanda. Not to Mom, not to anyone. Another silence. Mom also said you thought Greg and I were too materialistic. I never said that either. The realization dawned on both of us. Simultaneously, our parents had been deliberately driving a wedge between us for years, manipulating our perceptions of each other to maintain control. We need to talk, Amanda said finally, without Mom and Dad involved. I agreed, but before we could arrange a meeting, the situation with my parents reached a breaking point. I decided to attempt one final conversation with my parents. Maybe if I laid everything out clearly, they would recognize their behavior, and we could begin to heal this family fracture. I invited them to lunch at a quiet restaurant away from both our homes and children so we could speak frankly. I've noticed some concerning patterns in how you treat Lily compared to the twins. I began carefully. The different amounts of time you spend with them, the gifts, the college funds. I'm worried about the message it sends to Lily. Dad immediately became defensive. Here we go again with the accusations. We love all our grandchildren equally. I'm not trying to accuse you, I said. I'm just sharing my observations and concerns. You've always been oversensitive, Mom said dismissively. Always looking for problems where there aren't any. So you didn't take the twins to Disneyland using money from the account I set up for Lily, I asked. That was a family trip, Dad insisted. A family trip that excluded part of your family, I pointed out. You're imagining favoritism because you're insecure about being a single mother, Mom said sharply. Their refusal to acknowledge any issue, their immediate deflection and gaslighting, told me everything I needed to know. This conversation wasn't going to change anything. The following weekend, my parents invited both families over for a barbecue. I hesitated but decided to go for Amanda's sake. We had planned to talk after the gathering. During the afternoon, Lily proudly showed everyone a painting she had created in her art class. It was a colorful landscape that had been selected for the school's art display. Look at my painting, Grandma, Lily said, holding it up. My teacher said I have real talent. Mom glanced at it briefly. That's nice, Lily. But look at what Ashley made in her advanced art program. She pulled out a sculpture Ashley had created and placed it prominently on the mantel. Ashley has such natural artistic ability, Mom continued. Her teacher says she could be a professional someday. Lily's face crumpled. She looked down at her painting, then at Ashley's sculpture. Mine's not as good, she whispered. Maybe if you practiced more, Mom suggested. Ashley spends hours perfecting her art. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. She quietly set her painting down behind a potted plant and walked away. I found her a few minutes later, hiding in the bathroom, crying silently. Sweetheart, what's wrong? I asked, though I knew the answer. Grandma thinks Ashley is better than me at everything, she sobbed. Maybe she's right. I held her close. That is absolutely not true. Your painting is beautiful and your teacher recognized your talent. Everyone has different gifts, and yours are just as valuable as Ashley's. As I comforted my daughter, something hardened within me. This was no longer about money or time or gifts. This was about my child's self-worth being systematically undermined by the people who should have been building her up. That evening, I checked the joint account. The remaining $3,000 was gone, completely emptied without a word to me. I immediately called my parents, demanding an explanation. We needed it, Dad said bluntly. Amanda's family is going through a rough patch. Greg's firm is downsizing and they might have to cut back on the twins' activities. We helped them book a weekend at that lakeside resort they love to take their minds off things. You spent $3,000 on a weekend trip for them without even asking me. I was incredulous. You wouldn't have understood the necessity, Mom said. Besides, you're doing fine financially. Amanda needs more support right now. That was my money, I reminded them. For emergencies and Lily's expenses. And this was a family emergency, Dad countered. The twins were distressed about potentially having to leave their tennis club. That's not an emergency, I exclaimed. That's a luxury. Meanwhile, Lily needed therapy sessions I've been paying for out of pocket because of the anxiety she's developing from feeling constantly compared and found wanting by her grandparents. There you go again, Mom sighed dramatically, blaming everyone else for Lily's issues. Have you considered that maybe she's just more sensitive than normal children? That's not our fault. And it's not hers either, I said, my voice shaking with anger. But instead of supporting her, you punish her for it. We've done nothing but help you since we moved here, Dad said, his voice cold. We've picked up your slack as a parent. You chose this difficult path, Jean. You chose to have a child in an unstable relationship. You chose to be a single mother. We're just dealing with the consequences of your choices. His words struck me like physical blows. And Lily, she didn't choose any of this. Does she deserve to be treated as less than her cousins because of circumstances beyond her control? Nobody's treating her as less, Mom insisted. She's just not as easy to love as the twins. That's just reality, Jean. Some children are more lovable than others. I hung up, unable to continue the conversation. Their words echoed in my head, not as easy to love. Just reality, your choices. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. My parents didn't see Lily as their beloved grandchild. They saw her as a burden, a consequence of my poor choices that they reluctantly helped manage. They viewed their time with her as a favor to me, not as a relationship they valued. As this realization settled over me, another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. My parents had always claimed they were living on a tight retirement budget. They frequently mentioned financial constraints when it came to things for Lily. Yet they had somehow managed to fund lavish experiences for the twins, contribute to their college funds, and even take them to Disneyland. Curious, I called my Aunt Susan again. Do you happen to know how Dad's retirement package turned out? I asked casually. Oh, it was substantial, she replied. The bank gave him an incredible deal, something like 3 times his annual salary as a lump sum, plus his full pension. And they sold the Tucson house for much more than they paid for it. Why do you ask? My parents weren't struggling financially at all. Their claims of money being tight were just another manipulation, a way to justify their minimal investment in Lily while splurging on their favored grandchildren. With this final deception exposed, I knew what I had to do. First thing Monday morning, I made an appointment with a financial advisor. She reviewed the joint account statements and confirmed what I already knew. This is financial misappropriation, she said frankly. You established this account for specific purposes which were communicated to the other account holders. They violated that agreement. Next, I consulted with a lawyer who outlined my options. You can pursue civil action for the misused funds, he explained. Given the clear paper trail and specific purpose of the account, you have a strong case. I closed the joint account immediately and sent my parents a formal letter requesting repayment of the $7,000 they had spent on expenses unrelated to Lily. The letter, drafted with my lawyer's help, was polite, but firm, outlining the specific withdrawals that violated our agreement. Then I sent my parents an email establishing clear boundaries going forward. I've given a lot of thought to our recent interactions. I can no longer allow Lily to be exposed to an environment where she is treated as less valuable than her cousins. Until you can acknowledge the favoritism you've shown and commit to treating all your grandchildren equally, I need to limit your contact with Lily. This isn't a decision I've made lightly, but my primary responsibility is to protect my daughter's emotional well-being. The response was swift and vicious. My father called, shouting about ingratitude and threatening to cut me out of their will. My mother sent a lengthy email detailing all the sacrifices they had made for me and Lily, painting herself as a martyr and me as selfish and unstable. You've always been jealous of your sister, she wrote. Now you're trying to punish us because your life didn't turn out as well as hers. They refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing and categorically denied the possibility of repayment. That money was a gift, Dad insisted during one heated phone call. You can't dictate how gifts are used after they're given. But I had documentation proving otherwise, emails specifically stating the account's purpose, bank forms, listing its intended use, even text messages where they acknowledged the account was for Lily's expenses. I compiled all this evidence, methodically creating a detailed record of the financial misconduct. At the same time, I carefully documented instances of favoritism and disparate treatment that I had witnessed or Lily had reported. My parents, realizing I was serious about pursuing the matter, escalated their tactics. They began reaching out to extended family members, spinning a narrative that painted me as mentally unstable and ungrateful. We're very concerned about Jean, they told relatives. She's making wild accusations and trying to keep us from our grandchild. We think the stress of single motherhood has affected her judgment. Some family members believed them. Cousins I had been close to stopped returning my calls. An uncle sent me a concerned email suggesting I seek professional help for my paranoia. But others had witnessed enough of my parents' behavior over the years to question their version of events. My Aunt Susan stood firmly by me, telling anyone who would listen that my parents had always favored Amanda and were now extending that favoritism to her children. Through it all, I focused on Lily. I enrolled her in therapy with a child psychologist who specialized in family dynamics. I made sure our home was a safe space where she felt unconditionally loved and valued. I arranged playdates with supportive friends and their children, creating a chosen family where Lily could thrive. I also reached out to Amanda asking if we could meet without our parents' knowledge or involvement. Initially, she was reluctant, having absorbed our parents' portrayal of me as irrational. But eventually, she agreed to coffee at a neutral location. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said as soon as we sat down. "Mom and Dad have done nothing but help you since they moved here." "I know that's what they've told you," I replied calmly. "But there's another perspective I'd like you to consider." I showed her the evidence I'd compiled: the financial documents, the emails, the text messages. I told her about Lily crying in the bathroom after being compared unfavorably to Ashley. I shared what my mother had said about Lily being not as lovable as the twins. Amanda listened, her expression shifting from skepticism to uncertainty. "They've always spoken very highly of the twins to you," I acknowledged. "But have you ever noticed how they talk about Lily?" She hesitated. They do make comments sometimes about her being anxious or sensitive, but I assumed that was just how she is. "She's sensitive because she's constantly being compared and found wanting," I explained, "by the people who should love her unconditionally." Amanda shook her head. "I find it hard to believe Mom and Dad would deliberately favor my kids. That doesn't sound like them." "I understand your skepticism," I said, "but I'm not asking you to take my word for it. Just pay attention next time we're all together. Watch how they interact with all three children. See for yourself." She agreed, albeit reluctantly. I didn't expect an immediate conversion, but a seed of doubt had been planted. As I continued to hold firm on my boundaries, my parents grew increasingly desperate. They showed up unannounced at our home one evening, demanding to see Lily. When I calmly refused, my father threatened legal action. "Grandparents have rights too," he said angrily. "We could take you to court." "You're welcome to try," I replied, my voice steady, despite my racing heart. "But be prepared for all of this to become public record." The threat of their behavior being exposed in court proceedings gave them pause. My parents had always been concerned with appearances, with how others perceived them. The idea of their favoritism and financial misconduct being documented in court transcripts was clearly unsettling. They left without further threats, but the campaign against me intensified. Rumors spread through the family grapevine. I was unstable. I was greedy. I was turning Lily against her grandparents out of spite. Then came the unexpected turning point. Amanda called me late one evening, her voice subdued. "I saw it today," she said without preamble. "What you've been talking about. I saw it." She had taken the twins to visit our parents. During the visit, the topic of school achievements came up. Tyler mentioned that he'd improved his grades significantly, and our parents lavished praise on him. Then Ashley mentioned that her best friend had won a regional science competition. Mom immediately said, "Well, Lily could never do something like that. She doesn't have the focus." Amanda recounted, her voice tight with emotion. "It came out of nowhere. Lily wasn't even part of the conversation. And the way she said it, there was this dismissiveness, almost contempt. I've never heard Mom talk about any child that way." "That's what Lily has been experiencing her whole life," I said quietly. "I believe you now," Amanda admitted. "And I'm so sorry, Jean. I had no idea." It wasn't a complete resolution. There were still many conversations to be had, many wounds to heal. But it was a start. My sister was beginning to see the truth. 3 months after cutting financial ties with my parents, I filed a small claims lawsuit for the misappropriated funds. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about accountability. The court date was set for a Tuesday morning in October. I arrived early, meticulously organized documentation in hand. My parents entered the courtroom with an air of injured dignity, nodding stiffly to me across the room. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, listened carefully as I presented the evidence, the emails specifying the account's purpose, the bank documents, the pattern of withdrawals coinciding with expenses for the twins, and my Parents' own text messages acknowledging the account was intended for Lily's needs. When it was my father's turn to speak, he attempted to paint me as an ungrateful daughter trying to control how they spent their retirement money. "We've given Jean and her daughter so much of our time and energy," he told the judge. "This account was our reward, our compensation for all we've done." The judge's expression remained neutral, but her questions were pointed. "Mr. Marshall, are you stating that this joint account was payment for your services as grandparents?" Dad backpedaled quickly. "Not payment exactly, just flexibility for family expenses." According to these emails, the judge continued holding up printed copies. "You specifically agreed this account was for your granddaughter Lily's expenses and emergencies while in your care. Is that correct?" "Well, yes, but all our grandchildren." "Please answer the question directly, Mr. Marshall. Did you agree to these terms?" After a moment's hesitation, he admitted, "Yes, Your Honor." "And did you spend substantial sums from this account on expenses unrelated to Lily?" Another pause. "Yes." The judge ruled in my favor, ordering my parents to repay the full $7,000 plus court costs. It was a clear legal victory, but the greater impact came from having the truth publicly acknowledged. As we left the courthouse, several extended family members who had attended the hearing approached me. "We had no idea," my cousin Rachel said. "The way they talked about you. We thought you were being unreasonable." "I've seen how they treat Lily compared to the twins," admitted my Uncle Dennis. "I just never realized how systematic it was." My parents' carefully constructed facade as doting, equitable grandparents had crumbled under scrutiny. They had been exposed not just to me but to our entire family circle. In the weeks following the court case, more family members reached out with their own stories. My Aunt Patricia recalled how my mother had always compared my childhood accomplishments unfavorably to Amanda's. A cousin remembered my father making disparaging comments about my career choices while praising Amanda's similar decisions. "It was always there," Aunt Susan told me over coffee. Many of us noticed, but no one wanted to interfere in how Frank and Diane parented. I should have said something years ago. "I'm sorry, Jean." The most significant reconciliation came with Amanda. Over several heart-to-heart conversations, we pieced together how our parents had manipulated us, both playing us against each other to maintain control. "They would tell me you resented my marriage," Amanda confessed. "That you thought I had it easy. They'd say things like, 'Don't tell Jean about your vacation, she'll just be jealous because she can't afford one.' They told me you thought I was a failure as a mother," I replied. "That you pitied Lily for having me as a parent." We discovered dozens of these fabricated conflicts, imaginary grievances our parents had attributed to each of us, to keep us at odds. Without their interference, we found we had much more in common than we'd realized, including many of the same frustrations with our upbringing. Amanda also began to notice problematic patterns in how our parents interacted with her children. "They put so much pressure on Tyler and Ashley to achieve," she observed. "It's never enough. And they're constantly using them as examples of how children should behave." "They're not loving the twins for who they are," I said. "They're loving the image the twins project, the status they provide as successful grandparents." Amanda nodded slowly. "That's exactly it. I never saw it before." With the court-ordered repayment, I established a college fund for Lily, something tangible for her future that had been denied her before. But more importantly, I worked to create an environment where she could heal from the emotional damage inflicted by years of comparative neglect. Lily's therapy sessions continued, and gradually her anxiety decreased. Without the constant comparison to her cousins, she began to recognize and take pride in her own strengths and abilities. Her art flourished, and she joined a youth theater group where her empathetic nature and creativity were celebrated. My parents made several attempts at reconciliation, but always on their terms. There were tearful phone calls from my mother, "We miss Lily. How can you keep a grandchild from her grandparents?" There were stern lectures from my father, "Families forgive each other, Jean. This has gone on long enough." But there was never a genuine acknowledgement of the harm they had caused. Never a true apology. Never a commitment to change. I maintained my boundaries firmly but compassionately. "You're welcome in our lives when you can treat Lily with the same love and respect you show her cousins," I told them repeatedly. "We're not asking for preferential treatment, just equality." 6 months after the court case, we celebrated Thanksgiving at Amanda's house, the first holiday gathering without our parents present. It felt strange at first, breaking such a long-standing tradition. But as the day progressed, I noticed something remarkable. The children were playing together easily without tension or competition. Tyler helped Lily set up a board game, patiently explaining the rules. Ashley complimented Lily's new hairstyle with genuine warmth. Without our parents' subtle manipulations and comparisons, the cousins were developing authentic relationships based on mutual respect and affection. "They're going to be okay," Amanda said softly, watching them from the kitchen doorway. "All of them." I nodded, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. They have us, and we're not repeating the cycle. Today, nearly a year since I discovered that damning receipt, our family has been reconfigured but strengthened. Amanda and I speak several times a week, coordinating activities for the children and supporting each other through the ongoing complexities of our relationships with our parents. We've created a chosen family of friends and supportive relatives who demonstrate what unconditional love truly looks like. Lily has bloomed in this environment, her natural confidence and creativity emerging as her anxiety recedes. My parents remain on the periphery of our lives. They send cards and occasional messages, still unable or unwilling to acknowledge the fundamental issues that led to our estrangement. Perhaps someday they'll be ready for a genuine reconciliation. Until then, I've learned that family isn't defined solely by blood, it's defined by love, respect, and equality. The most valuable lesson from this painful journey has been the importance of breaking harmful patterns. By standing up to my parents' favoritism, I not only protected Lily's self-worth, but also freed Amanda's children from the burden of impossible expectations. I showed all three children that they deserve to be loved for exactly who they are, not for how they compare to others, not for the status they provide, but for their authentic selves. Sometimes cutting ties is the most loving act possible, not just for yourself, but for everyone involved. It creates space for healing, for growth, and for building something stronger on honest foundations. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision to protect someone you love, even when it meant facing criticism or opposition? I hope sharing my story helps others find the courage to stand up for what's right, especially when it comes to protecting our children. Please like this video if my story resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life experiences. Share with someone who might need to hear this message, and comment below with your thoughts or similar experiences. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you strength and clarity if you're facing similar challenges in your own family.